the Dream 100 Show. The epicenter of influence, collaboration, and exponential growth. You're about to discover the power of relationships. Dream 100 relationships. And you're one relationship away from a totally different business and life. This is your host, Michael Tasner.
Hey there, and welcome to episode 003 of the Dream 100 Show. In last week's episode, I gave you kind of the broad strokes of the framework to the Dream 100. In today's episode, I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into the three different types of audiences, the three different types of Dream 100 people/businesses that you can go after. Now, if you think about it for a second, the kiss of death to deploying the Dream 100 is going after the wrong list. If you put all of these efforts, if you start to deploy it in the methodology that I teach, you're going to be investing not only considerable time, but also a fair amount of money. You're going to be sending physical gifts. You're going to be sending handwritten cards. You're going to be sending personalized things. You're really going to be working these relationships. And it's not going to take a month or 2 months to see these relationships come to fruition. Some of these are going to take 6 months, 8 months, 12 months. Now, again, there are going to be some steps along the way and some kind of quick wins that we can deploy within this framework. But this is a longer-term horizon strategy. For one of those people on the list to make it to your Dream 100 audience, they have to have the ability to really catapult your business. And those relationships don't just kind of pop out of nowhere. Like, they take time to cultivate, and they take time to nurture and massage and build. So if we nail the list part, we're golden, and we can make sure that the efforts that we're putting in are going to move you toward the direction that you need to be. However, if we're starting off with the wrong audience, the wrong list, if we build that out and then we realize 6 months later, well, geez, these really don't make up a Dream 100 prospect or a Dream 100 partnership, you're having to start all the way back at square one. So there are three completely different types of audiences that you can build. And I can argue one over the other, and we're going to talk them through. And some of you might realize that this particular audience is going to be better to start with. Some of you, depending on your strategies, might want to start with the third audience. So it's going to vary, but I will tell you where we have seen the best success by way of executing the strategy. So the first audience would be your Dream 100 prospects. So let's just talk through a couple of miscellaneous niches. I have a document that I bring up before I start recording, and it's got like 7,000 different niches on it. And then I use the randomize feature so that it just keeps me on my toes so that every episode we're talking about different niches. There's some niches that I think are so overused that it's like you keep hearing the same thing. Oh, marketing agencies, for example. So yes, I have a marketing agency. But that niche is talked about time and time again. Dentists, doctors. And again, those are great niches to go after, but I want to kind of have your thinking be challenged a little bit so that you're kind of stepping out of your comfort zone. But where I have found the best results is when I'm thinking of other niches or other tactics that never in a million years would I have thought about. When my thinking is kind of linear and I stay within my niche that I serve, I think I'm almost constrained a little bit when I start thinking of completely other niches, like funeral homes, for example. And to think about, well, who would be a target customer there, and how do you think that through, and what type of marketing would I do, and how would I massage those relationships? How would that differ from going after gym owners or something like it? It just challenges you to think outside the box completely. So I've got a couple of niches that we're going to go through today, and let's talk each of these through. So the first niche that I have is tree trimming. So all things kind of tree trimming, tree services, and there's obviously niches within that niche. So let's talk that through. If you were looking at audience number one, your ideal customers that would make up your Dream 100, who would you start to go after? And you might say, well, Michael, our average ticket is $500 or $1,000. And I'm just going to use simple math. Let's say you're doing $500,000 a year of revenue, average ticket, let's round it up and let's say the $1,000 mark. So you're doing roughly 2 jobs a day, for example. Okay, great. So you have your average ticket. Now, the persona aspect of really lasering in, and we talked a fair amount about that on our last episode, so make sure you're leveraging that ideal persona. But you need to think bigger. So you could say, well, my ideal prospect is X and they live within this particular area and here's some of the different things that they're up to. But a Dream 100 prospect isn't going to spend $1,000 with you. They need to have the ability to transform your business. So what would that particular number be? I would argue the number should be probably $50,000 or $100,000, where they could be at least 10% of your revenue. So if you were to grab that person, in addition to everything, and if nothing else changed, you now added 10% to your top line, or 20%, whatever number you think is most appropriate. But if you're saying, well, our average is like that $500 to $1,500, so right around $1,000, that's great, and that makes up kind of your persona. But for it to meet the criteria of a Dream 100 prospect, a better example would be going after a list of people that own farms, going after a list of people that own real estate that are in the local area, going after developers, going after people that have multiple properties. So if you're a farmer, for example, then they're going to have to clear a bunch of trees. They're probably not going to be clearing one tree at a time. They might be clearing 100 trees at a time. If you're getting in with the developers and you know that there's certain development that's happening locally, they're typically buying the raw land, and almost always there are trees that are on that land that are then going to have to be chopped down. So again, for it to make a Dream 100 prospect, don't just think of who your customers are, but look at who can add 10, 20, 30, 50, even 100% of additional revenue if you were to land that one person. So you have to start to think a lot bigger. Much, much bigger. So that's audience number one, are your ideal prospects, the Dream 100 prospects, but with that asterisk of they have to have a lot more capital to invest with you. They can't just be you adding one more customer that ends up being $1,000 for the year. So let's take another example. The second one that came up was carpet cleaning. So you have your regular customers. You're going in, you're cleaning their carpets, and maybe they're using you every couple of years, maybe once a year. You have some customers that are better than others. For it to be on your Dream 100 prospect list, again, it has to be somebody that could catapult your business. Maybe that would be you getting in and targeting hotels, banquet facilities, banquet halls, landlords, property managers. Think about all the people that they could end up giving you that $100,000 contract versus a few $100 contract to clean the different carpets in someone's house. That is list number one. I'll give you one more example of Dream 100 prospects. And what I'm trying to do is to drive home the point that they have to be sharks. Like, they have to be the bigger businesses, the bigger customers that you're going to be doing business with. They can't be the small potato, because otherwise that really makes its way back into just your everyday marketing that you're doing to grow your business. Like, you're always out there trying to attract new customers. Dream 100 in particular, we're trying to attract that massive order that's going to really take you to that next level. So, third business that I have down here, let me just look at my list. So the one I picked was appliance repair. And if you think about that one, perfect example of typically low value sales. And value probably isn't the right word, but low ticket is a better word. So you have people that are typically maybe a few $100s to repair an appliance, and you're out there, you're kind of hustling. If you've built the business up a bit, you might have a couple of people that are out there on a regular basis, but these traditionally are not going to be high ticket. So who would be a Dream 100 prospect? I would say you go after people that own laundromats, for example. So they aren't going to have one washer and dryer, but they could have 100 washers and dryers. Going after restaurants, or even in particular some of their restaurant chains. If there's somebody in your local area that they own 20 of a particular restaurant, it doesn't have to be 20, but who are those people that have multiple sets of appliances that they have a need to have these up and running constantly. Like they can't wait a day or 2 or 3 days. So now you can start to charge premium prices, and you're able to have that volume where that restaurant might be calling you once or twice or 3 times a week, for example. My brother-in-law has a mechanic shop, and he has his day-to-day people that come in for inspections and fix my car and change my tires and plug a tire, all that kind of stuff. But without him even thinking about the Dream 100, he has one of those Dream 100 accounts, and that's the local post office, where they bring their vehicles. They have a contract with the post office that continues to bring vehicles to their location. So they're getting new jobs every single week from the post office. This broke down, this broke down, this broke down. So if you take and you look at the volume of that one versus all the other customers that are coming in, I don't have the exact math, so I'll make up some numbers, but let's say his average customer is $1,000, the post office maybe is $100,000. So what if he had 10 more businesses like the post office? He just 10x'd his business. 10x without even having to push. What if your carpet cleaning business all of a sudden had all these hotels that you were going in a couple of times a year and cleaning, and those are $50,000, $100,000 more of the commercial side of things rather than only doing residential? If you're like, well, I don't do commercial. Well, if you did the residential, what if you're now in with someone that owns a real estate agency and they want all the carpets cleaned of every single one of the houses that they're getting ready to show? Think about that. Think about the insane potential of having that Dream 100 list of prospects that could catapult you to the next level. So that is audience number 1 of 3. That is my second favorite, but it's the one that I always start with so I can really start to get your brain thinking and starting to really think this through. So your homework for that particular piece is make your list, broad strokes of who would start to make up that particular audience for you. You're not going to have to go deep yet into the actual business names, but rather, okay, great, you have a painting business. Who's going to fit that particular criteria? And just start to build those out. The second audience is the one that traditionally I like to see you focus on. And it is one that takes a little bit longer at times, but it's one that really can catapult things to another level. So the second Dream 100 audience that you can build and start to then target are people that sell to your customers already. So this ends up being more of a referral, partnership, or an affiliate type of relationship. So like the last exercise, I'm going to talk through, I'll pull 3 more niches and we'll kind of talk those through. So these are people that have the ability to get your name in front of hundreds, if not thousands of people that could be your customer. Now, the reason that these particular people fit the criteria of a Dream 100 business, Dream 100 referral, Dream 100 partner, is that they have the ability to not just send one person to you, but potentially hundreds. So they're going to be referring ideally your ideal and your target customer to you. But rather than sending one customer, you could get flooded right away, or you could get flooded all during the course of the year, where you have that relationship and it continues to go on and on and on, and it doesn't necessarily stop as long as each side is holding up their end of the bargain. So let me grab my 3 niches. So the first one that I rolled the dice on is moving companies. Now, I want to make one distinction just so you don't get confused. In the first example, your Dream 100 business is actually you aiming to do business, so transacting dollars with that particular business. In the second example, you're traditionally not going to be transacting, like they're not going to necessarily be your customer. Customers of theirs are going to be your customer. So let's talk through if you've got a moving company, for example. If you were thinking back to the first audience, that would be you aiming to partner with a business that is going to be continuing to do business with you all day, every day. So maybe that is landing a relocation company as a client of yours, and they're giving you just tons and tons of business. But in this example, the second one, what I'm aiming for you to do is to find businesses, again, that already have your customer, that you can strike some kind of relationship with. So if I had a moving company, maybe I would want to strike a relationship with the Chamber of Commerce and start to learn about all the new businesses that are joining or coming to town, and then having the Chamber of Commerce introduce me as the preferred moving vendor, as an example. Maybe I want to try and land, and they're different in every city, but like those welcome centers where people are stopping and where they're going to a different city, they're able to see all the different welcome activities, and maybe that particular business would be on my list of Dream 100 affiliates and or partners. So that moving company rather, would then strike a relationship, and in turn, they're going to start introducing you and or promoting you, ideally for no cost. Now, where things can get to be a little bit tricky, and it doesn't have to be this tricky, and we'll talk about a lot more examples and real life examples in future episodes. You might be willing to offer, as you start to kind of make the offer, you start to say, well, here's what we're willing to do, some kind of compensation after people have signed up. But ideally, you're just starting the relationship up. You're building out that list. So again, if I've got a moving company and I'm trying to find businesses that already have my customer that wouldn't be a direct competitor of mine, so they're not going to be shy to introduce you, you just really have to continue to think that through. Maybe you partner with locksmiths and they go on your Dream 100 audience. Well, people that are getting their locks changed very well may have moved and or they might be planning on moving. Maybe they call ahead and they want to schedule a locksmith a month in advance or far in advance. Maybe that's not the best example, but I'm trying to get your brain thinking a little bit creatively around who is already going to have your list of people that are looking at moving in or out where they're located. That is audience number 2. So moving companies is one example. Next example I've got, I felt it gave me challenging ones today, is windshield repair. So quick recap. Again, I want to make sure you have the distinction between the first audience and the second one. In the first audience, I might go after auto dealers because they could do a lot of business with me. They could make me the preferred vendor that they're working with to fix all the different windshields. So that would be a Dream 100 prospective company. I'm going to be doing business, exchanging money between our two companies. In the second example, I want to think about who has lists of people that own cars that may get injured. So let's talk through some examples. The most obvious example would be insurance agents. They typically can't force you to use someone. So while yes, their insurance company would be, I guess, paying you. So it kind of has a little bit of a crossover, but they could definitely refer you a ton of business. If I look at companies that maybe do window tinting, for example, or they're installing kind of those souped up stereo systems, they could potentially refer you a lot of business. You could look at other auto dealers that they might not, so like a used car dealer, for example. Maybe they sell the vehicles, but they don't do any of the actual repair themselves. So they could refer you a variety of customers. So start to think a little bit more broadly of, again, who's going to have my list of target customers. Now, that one might be a little bit tougher, but if you had a list of all the different insurance companies and you started to build those relationships and all of a sudden you became one of the preferred partners that you're typically getting those referral relationships from, it could be game over in a good way, where now you were having to be actively marketing on a regular basis and kind of pushing versus pulling and really, just having to go hard all the time. But now all of a sudden you've got a couple of these insurance companies that they're sending you potential business. And it's all because you started to build that relationship. Third one that I have, let me scroll down here, is photography. And that could obviously take a lot of different sub-niches. Kids photography, wedding photography, etc. But let's talk broad strokes. So first example, if I look back at who would be exchanging money with you that fits in that first of three lists, would be somebody like a big company that is looking to have all their employees photographed. So rather than it being a one-off shoot, maybe you're shooting photos of 100 people. So that would be that first audience that we talk through. And this one, again, a referral partner, a partner, an affiliate, a joint venture partner. We're looking for people that have audiences that we're trying to go after that we wouldn't necessarily be directly competing with. So I do all this ad lib because I don't want it to feel like I've rehearsed this. It keeps me on my toes, keeps me thinking, and it keeps it a little bit more raw where it's not perfectly polished for you. That's just the way that I like to shoot content. So the first one that came to mind was partnering with people that are doing sonogram photos. So if you know that people are now pregnant, and you might not be able to disclose this information, but they're not just going to hand you their customer list, but if they're doing sonogram photos, maybe then they're going to start referring people if you're specializing in baby photos, as an example. They're already getting people that are coming in and spending money to get pictures, to get those sonogram or those 3D pictures is what I'm envisioning. And now they're making the introductions to you as, here's our preferred partner, here's a great company that you could do business with that shoots perfect kids' photos. They already have your audience. They've already had people that are spending money on pictures. That, to me, would be a slam dunk. Maybe you end up partnering with a particular restaurant that allows you to come in one day a week and takes pictures when you're sitting at the nice restaurant. And then if you want to buy them, it's X amount of money, and then the restaurant gets a little bit of a kickback. I saw that happen when I was in Ocean City, Maryland over the summer. Photographer partnering with the restaurant, and then they tried to sell you pictures. If the restaurant was a little bit nicer, I probably would have decided to get the pictures, but it wasn't a great background. So those are just two quick hit examples, but those have the ability to continue to send you just their customers, introduce you to their customers. So I prefer this audience because it's one that may not, how can I phrase this? It's one that typically is going to send you a trickle of referral business on a more regular basis, rather than like a massive contract or a massive job that you may not necessarily be ready to go for. Now, if you're ready to go, you're lock and loaded, and you can handle, let's say you're used to doing photographs of newborns maybe a couple of times a week, and then all of a sudden the hospital wants to hire you to do photos of every single newborn for the entire year. You might not have that infrastructure ready to go. But if you're partnering with that business that's doing the 3D sonogram photos, for example, they might be referring people to you on a little bit more of a regular basis, but it wouldn't be like all the time, like 100 jobs all at one time, and then that starts to hurt your reputation. So you have to really kind of think through the strategy a little bit of the pros and cons. In that first example, that first of three audiences we talked about, those are your Dream 100 prospects. And they're people that, at the very least, can add 10% or much, much more to your top line revenue. Now, if you're only doing, $10,000 a year, I'm looking for someone that's going to add like 50 grand, so it's a lot more than 10%, but hopefully you get the picture. The second Dream 100 audience that we talk through would be people that have your ideal customers already on their lists. They're on their social media channels, their email lists, they're visiting their business. And in these cases, you're able to then build some kind of referral relationship, some kind of partnership and or joint venture. The third audience is building a list of your Dream 100 kind of PR. So what are those top 100 places that if you were to get on this particular podcast, this particular radio station, this particular TV show, like is it the Today Show, for example? Is it, if you're a local business, is it you getting on these 5 TV stations at prime time, for example? So you're building out this list of all of the Dream 100 industry influencers. Whatever vertical that you're in, you're building that out as to who, if they write about you, talk about you, could really elevate your brand to a completely different level. Let me pull up a couple of niches. First one I've got is cell phone repair. So, I mean, in this one, if you're local, it's really going to be, I mean, the local TV stations, for example. It's going to be maybe a couple of the local podcasts. It's going to be the local news channels, the local newspapers. Like that is really who you're going to be going after. If you had a much larger audience, so if you had a chain of stores all over the place, maybe that's Verizon talking about you, for example, and or somebody that is the industry influencer in cell phone repair. Maybe it's you landing on a show like the Today Show, for example, and you talking about trends or all the challenges that you see with the upcoming iPhone and the types of repairs that you're seeing. We're not going to go deep into the type of news story you'd want to be pitching, but those would be a couple of examples of who would make that Dream 100 PR list. Another one that I had down was pool cleaning. So similar to cell phone repair. If I'm a local business, I want to be being talked about on the local radio stations, the local news, the local media. It's all, I mean, local in nature. So you're just building out the different radio stations, TV stations, podcasts. Maybe you want a couple of local influencers to talk about you on TikTok or Pinterest or Instagram, YouTube. It's pretty easy to identify those types of people. If you had a nationwide business, let's say you had a pool supply business, it would be obviously much, much larger in scope, where again, you're going after some more national press, as an example, and you start to build out that audience. This one isn't necessarily harder to do. The PR piece just traditionally, it doesn't perfectly fit for me, the Dream 100 strategy. And the reason that it doesn't fit is that I rarely ever will deploy this particular strategy, so only going after the PR, Dream 100 PR, without going after one of the other audiences, typically in tandem. I'm never going after all 3 audiences at the same time, but if I'm looking to generate some PR, if I'm looking to kind of elevate my PR game to another level and really land some great press, I know that it's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of pitching and different stories, and that will take time, but it's not that often that one news story is going to catapult your business. It rarely happens unless it's something like a national, like you're on Shark Tank, for example. That can completely change. That fits the complete criteria of a Dream 100 PR thing, because you land on Shark Tank. I mean, most of these businesses do hundreds of thousands of sales just from appearing on the particular show. But winding up on your local newspaper, your local radio stations, it's going to be kind of a notch in your belt, so to speak, where you're able to add it, you're able to showcase it as seen in, as talked about on, as featured in, and that will drive you a little bit of traction. But this one, definitely, you have to be landing a lot more than one. Whereas with a Dream 100 prospect or a Dream 100 referral relationship, those only take one. Now, there's outliers, again, with the PR stuff, like I mentioned, Shark Tank. But it typically, for a local-based business, you're going to have that compound effect of this one, this one, this one, and really have that build a bit for it to really start to take hold for you to really help. So rarely would I ever advise going after this third audience without going after one of the others. So very quick recap for you. So I focused on the list today. And I know it may have felt like I was trying to really just belabor the point, but I'm really trying to make sure that you understand the distinctions. And more importantly, it allows you to pick which of those three does it make sense for you to start with and or for you to focus on. So audience number one, your Dream 100 prospects, but a prospect that can do an insane amount of business with you that's so much larger than your average current deal size. Audience number two would be your Dream 100 partners, referrals, affiliates, people that have your ideal customers on their databases currently. They're not a direct competitor of yours, but they could refer you a lot of business. And then the third audience were your Dream 100 media and or PR opportunities. If you're a local business, they're traditionally locally based. If you're more of a nationwide business, you can think obviously even larger. And even if you're local, you can still think larger. But if your audience is local, you're traditionally going after local PR. So that is how you laser in on picking your list. I traditionally recommend starting with the second list of building out those referral partners, those affiliates, those joint ventures that can refer you lots and lots of business. But depending on your business, the type of niche that you're in, the customer you're serving, the businesses you're serving, one of these may make more sense than another. Make sure you tune in next week to the continuation of the Dream 100 strategy. I really appreciate you listening. Comment, like, share, give us some love. Always happy to serve. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you next week. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night.